There's a chill wind that whispers through the dense, unforgiving forests of Nova Scotia. It's a wind that seems to carry a question, a silent, ceaseless lament. It's here, in this rugged, beautiful, yet perilous landscape, that two small children, bright sparks of life, stepped into a nightmare from which they still haven't awakened. 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. On May 2nd, 2025, they were home. Moments later, they just weren't. Vanished, swallowed by the ancient woods, leaving behind nothing but a silence that screams and a mystery that chills you to the bone. What happened to Lilly and Jack? How can two children disappear so completely, so utterly, without a single trace? For the Sullivan family in the small, rural community of Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, May 2nd, 2025, probably started like any other day. Their home, nestled on Gairloch Road, was a place of typical family life, surrounded by the vast, imposing presence of the Nova Scotian wilderness, a tapestry of dense woods, steep banks, and thick, nearly impenetrable brush. Lilly, just 6, already showing glimpses of the person she'd become, and her younger brother Jack, a bundle of 4-year-old energy, were reportedly kept home from school that Friday. Their stepfather, Daniel Martel, later said Lilly had a bit of a cough. It was a decision that, in hindsight, would be scrutinized, turned over and over, like a stone in the cold current of an unending investigation. Their mom, Malihia Brooks Murray, and Daniel were in their bedroom with their 1-year-old daughter. They remembered Lilly popping in and out of the room a few times. They could hear young Jack in the kitchen, just the normal, comforting sounds of kids playing. And then a shift, a subtle, almost imperceptible change that would slice their lives into a stark before and a devastating after. The sound stopped. An unnerving quiet settled over the home. According to their parents, a quick check revealed the children weren't in their usual play spots. Panic, like a cold serpent, began to uncoil. They looked outside, calling their names, the familiar syllables swallowed by the indifferent trees. The backsliding door, a feature of the home known for being almost silent, was found ajar. This single detail would become a focal point, an almost soundless exit, offering no clue, no audible cry of departure. Even more chilling, their boots were gone. Lilly's distinctive pink boots and Jack's blue dinosaur boots. You know, the kind of cherished footwear little ones often insist on wearing. Lilly's white backpack, one she might have carried, was also missing. These ordinary things painted a haunting picture. The children hadn't just wandered out barefoot and unprepared. It looked like they'd dressed for an outing, or perhaps been dressed by someone else. Those first moments must have been a blur of frantic, heart-stopping fear for their mother. The realization that your children, who were right there just moments ago, are now gone. It's a terror few can truly comprehend. The woods, usually just a backdrop to their rural life, suddenly transformed into a menacing, unknowable entity. The minutes stretched into an eternity as they scoured the immediate area around the home, their names echoing unanswered. Hope, still a flickering candle, battled against the rising tide of dread. But Lilly and Jack were nowhere to be found. The call to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, at 10 a.m. that morning marked the official beginning of a case that would grip the nation and leave even seasoned investigators profoundly baffled. The RCMP's arrival marked the formalization of the nightmare. Initially, the prevailing belief, or perhaps it was hope, was that the children had simply wandered off. Young kids sometimes do, their curiosity leading them into the embrace of the woods, unaware of its dangers. An advisory for vulnerable missing persons was issued for Pictou County. But as the first hours ticked by, the sheer scale of the operation began to reflect a growing unease. This wasn't just a case of a child momentarily lost in a familiar park. This was different. The terrain itself was a formidable adversary. The woods surrounding Lansdowne Station aren't gentle parkland. They're dense, a tangled web of trees, undergrowth, fallen logs, and uneven ground, with steep banks and thick brush that could hide a grown adult, let alone two small children. Search and rescue teams, made up of highly trained volunteers who selflessly give their time in crises like these, poured into the area. At times, up to 160 searchers, a small army of hope, combed through the wilderness. Canine units, with their incredible sense of smell, were brought in, their barks a hopeful sound in the otherwise silent woods. Drones buzzed overhead, their cameras scanning from above, hoping for a flash of color, any sign of movement. Helicopters, including those from the Department of Natural Resources Air Services, joined the aerial search, their rotors beating a rhythmic pulse against the forest silence. The initial search radius was set at 3.5 kilometers around the Sullivan home, a huge area to cover meticulously on foot in such tough conditions. Searchers used ribbons to mark cleared areas, a painstaking process to ensure no patch was overlooked. They were urged to check ditches, culverts, any small space where frightened children might try to hide. The tight-knit community, completely shaken, did what communities do. They offered support, they prayed, and you can bet many conducted their own informal searches of their properties, outbuildings, and surrounding lands, desperate to find any clue. Their mom's plea, captured by media in those early, agonizing days, was just heartbreaking. "I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them, and I want them home," Malihia Brooks Murray told CTV News. "When they're found, it will be the biggest relief to hug them." Her words resonated with every parent, every person who's ever loved a child. The raw anguish was palpable. Day 1 bled into Day 2, then Day 3. The search continued relentlessly, day and night. The sheer number of personnel involved was staggering. Ground search teams from all over Nova Scotia, the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, and multiple RCMP units, including police dog services. They battled not only the difficult terrain, but also the elements. Nova Scotia woods in early May can be unpredictable. They even found fresh bear prints in the search area, a grim reminder of the other inhabitants of the forest. And ticks, a constant problem for the searchers. The conditions were described as truly grueling. Despite these Herculean efforts, the woods remained stubbornly silent. No sign of Lily's pink boots or Jack's dinosaur ones. No trace of Lily's white backpack. No discarded piece of clothing. No cries for help. Nothing. The children, it seemed, had vanished into thin air. The forest, vast and ancient, held its secrets close. Each passing hour without news just gnawed away at the hope that had fueled those initial, frantic efforts. The optimism of the first day began to curdle into a grim, gnawing anxiety. The RCMP, while publicly stating there was no initial information to suggest abduction and that it appeared the children had wandered off, were also beginning to feel the weight of how inexplicable this all was. The thoroughness of the search, the sheer number of resources deployed, and the complete lack of any clues were starting to paint a deeply troubling picture. This wasn't following the typical pattern of a child lost in the woods, who is usually found, one way or another, fairly quickly or close to where they went missing. You can only imagine the psychological toll on the searchers themselves. These are dedicated individuals, many of them volunteers, pouring their hearts and souls into these efforts. To search for days, in difficult and often dangerous conditions, for two small, vulnerable children, and to find absolutely nothing. That's emotionally and physically draining. Sherry Vinot, president of the Nova Scotia Ground Search and Rescue Association, acknowledged this, stating, "This search has taken a toll on searchers both physically and emotionally, and we are all hoping for a resolution." As the days mounted, the investigation naturally widened. The RCMP began appealing for any video footage from residents, dashcam or security camera footage from Gairloch Road and surrounding areas between April 28th and May 2nd. They confirmed Lilly and Jack had been seen in public with family members on the afternoon of May 1st, the day before they disappeared. This detail, while seemingly minor, helped establish a slightly firmer timeline, but did little to explain their disappearance the next morning. Police were painstakingly trying to piece together the children's last known movements, looking for any anomaly, any lead, however small. Over 50 people were formally interviewed in these early stages, a number that would only grow. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, confirmed he'd voluntarily taken a polygraph test as part of the investigation, a standard procedure in many complex missing persons cases. Yet, despite all these efforts, the boots on the ground, the eyes in the sky, the interviews, the data collection, the core mystery remained. 6 days into the intensive search, after covering 5.5 square kilometers of heavily wooded and rural terrain with hundreds of searchers, dogs, drones, and even an underwater recovery team checking nearby water bodies, the RCMP made the difficult decision to scale back the large-scale ground operation on May 7th. It was a devastating blow to the family and the community, a tacit admission that the initial, intensive phase had yielded no answers. The children were still out there, somewhere, but the forest had offered not a single clue to their whereabouts. Stopping the large-scale ground search didn't mean the end of efforts, but it definitely marked a significant shift. It was a move from a rapid response search and rescue to a longer-term, more investigative missing persons case. The RCMP emphasized that the investigation remained active and ongoing, with numerous units involved, including the Major Crime Unit, Digital Forensic Services, Police Dog Services, a Behavioral Sciences Group, Criminal Analysis Services, and even the Truth Verification Section, which works with polygraphs. This all-hands-on-deck approach just showed how complex and serious this was. They did conduct more targeted searches later, on May 8th, 9th, 17th, 18th, 31st, and June 1st. These involved smaller teams zeroing in on specific areas, maybe spots that needed a second look, or higher probability areas around waterways. One such area was a pipeline trail where a boot print had previously been located, though it is still unclear if this print was definitively linked to the children or when it was found. But even these more focused efforts, they failed to yield any breakthroughs. The RCMP stated that the information gathered so far, including all the ground search and rescue efforts, hadn't identified new areas that warranted another large-scale search. It was a frustrating, bewildering situation. The land, so thoroughly scoured, simply refused to give up its secrets. Over 10,000 volunteer hours had been poured into the search by mid-May, a testament to the dedication of the search teams and the community as concerned. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan was increasingly being called an anomaly. Experts in missing persons cases started weighing in, noting how it deviated from typical patterns. Michelle Genies, an associate professor in criminal justice whose research includes missing persons, called the case an anomaly due to the apparent lack of any evidence. She remarked, "It doesn't meet a lot of the normal criteria for what we would see for these types of cases. Usually there is evidence in some way that would suggest something nefarious has happened. It mirrors those adult missing persons cases where we call it quiet disappearances. There's no evidence." That quiet disappearance aspect was perhaps the most chilling. No signs of a struggle, no witnesses, no discarded items, just an unnerving void. The detail about the children being absent from school, not just on the Friday they went missing, but also the preceding Thursday due to Lily's cough and the Wednesday due to a professional development day for teachers became a point of discussion. While it might seem innocuous, in the context of a baffling disappearance, every detail, every deviation from routine, gets examined for potential significance. The RCMP confirmed they were considering all scenarios, standard approach in such complex investigations. This meant that while there was no direct evidence pointing to abduction or foul play, these possibilities couldn't be, and weren't, ruled out. The very involvement of the Major Crime Unit signaled that investigators were looking beyond the simple scenario of children wandering off and becoming lost. A criminal investigation was, by its nature, underway. The police were meticulous, stating they were accessing, evaluating, and analyzing a significant volume of information from various sources. Corporal Sandy Matheru, the investigation lead with the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit, emphasized their very coordinated and deliberate approach to make certain all information is meticulously scrutinized, prioritized, and actioned to ensure nothing is missed. The number of tips from the public grew steadily, hitting over 355 by late May and climbing to 488 by early June. Each tip had to be logged, assessed, and followed up if it seemed credible, a laborious but essential process. Investigators collected hundreds of hours of video footage from areas surrounding Lansdowne Station, including footage from Gairloch Road, where the children's home is, spanning from April 28th to May 2nd. They formally interviewed 54 people by early June, and in some cases, polygraph tests were administered. The RCMP also expanded their collaborative efforts, working with the National Center for Missing Persons, the Canadian Center for Child Protection, and provincial and municipal police agencies from Nova Scotia and other parts of Canada. All this expertise was focused on a case that was proving stubbornly resistant to resolution. The family's property itself was searched extensively. The home, the grounds, outbuildings, even nearby septic systems, wells, old mine shafts, and culverts were examined. Nothing. This lack of any physical trace on or near their own property was particularly perplexing. If the children had wandered off and succumbed to an accident or the elements close to home, you'd think such intensive searches would have found something. The emotional toll on the family was, and continues to be, immense and unimaginable. Daniel Martel, the children's stepfather, spoke of the deafening silence in their once busy home. Going from a family of 7 to just me, I have nothing but time to just think. He shared, also revealing the personal consequence of losing custody of his biological daughter Meadow. Amidst the turmoil, though, he remained hopeful for supervised visits. He expressed gratitude for the investigators and the public's continued tips, with the family clinging to the hope that the children would return home safe. The mother's family reportedly stated they were advised by police not to speak extensively to the media. Pretty common advice in sensitive ongoing investigations to protect the integrity of the case and shield the family from undue stress or speculation. A memorial of stuffed animals and candles began to grow outside the RCMP detachment in Stellarton, a poignant public display of grief and hope from a community reeling from the children's disappearance. This quiet tribute spoke volumes about the impact on the wider community. When children go missing, especially in a small, rural area, it sends ripples of fear and sorrow through everyone. Daily routines are disrupted, a sense of security is fractured, and parents hold their own children a little tighter. The world can feel like it's turned upside down for those directly affected. Staff Sergeant Rob McCommon, officer in charge of major crime and behavioral sciences for the RCMP, acknowledged the difficulty of the investigation, stating it was taking longer than we all hoped to advance the case. He described the investigators as a tenacious, committed group who were gathering and assessing information daily. Yet, despite this tenacity, the central question remained unanswered, hanging heavy in the Nova Scotian air. Where were Lilly and Jack Sullivan? The dedication of investigators and the sheer strength of families in these situations, it's truly something. If you find these in-depth explorations of unsolved mysteries compelling and want to stay informed about cases that deserve our attention, consider subscribing to this channel for more thoughtful analysis and respectful storytelling. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. Now, let's talk about the theories and the perplexing questions that continue to haunt this case. When there's no concrete evidence, theories inevitably begin to form, ranging from the tragically plausible to the purely speculative. For investigators, every theory, no matter how unlikely it might seem on the surface, has to be considered and methodically evaluated against the known facts, or, in this case, the profound lack of them. The RCMP have been clear. All scenarios are on the table. One of the first and most natural assumptions was that Lilly and Jack simply wandered off from their home and got lost in the dense woods. Children, especially as young as 4 and 6, can cover surprising distances, and their curiosity can lead them into unfamiliar territory quickly. The fact that their boots and Lily's backpack were missing seemed to support the idea that they left the house somewhat prepared for an outdoor venture. However, this theory is hit hard by the complete absence of any trace found during those extensive and repeated searches. Even in the worst-case scenario, where lost children succumb to the elements or an accident, searchers almost invariably find something: a piece of clothing, a shoe, a backpack, or, tragically, the children themselves. That vast search area, covered by experienced teams, dogs, and aerial surveillance, yielded nothing. This makes the lost in the woods theory, while still a possibility, increasingly difficult to square with the facts. The woods are vast, yes, but the search was also incredibly thorough in the most probable areas. Another grim possibility in any wilderness disappearance is an encounter with wildlife. Nova Scotia's forests are home to animals, including bears, as those fresh prints found during the search reminded everyone. However, much like the lost Ansicum theory, an animal attack would typically leave some form of evidence, however distressing. The lack of any such findings makes this a less probable, though not entirely dismissible, scenario in the minds of some. Investigators would have been looking for any signs consistent with such an encounter. Could there have been an accident? An undiscovered hazard near the home? Perhaps something not immediately obvious within the primary search zones? Old wells, abandoned mine shafts, which they specifically checked, or unsecured areas could pose dangers. Again, the meticulous nature of the search of the property and its immediate surroundings makes this less likely to have been overlooked, but the possibility of an unknown, concealed hazard in a wider, unsearched area can't be entirely discounted if the children traveled further than initially believed possible. Then there's the deeply unsettling possibility of foul play, including abduction. The RCMP have consistently stated they have no evidence to suggest the children were abducted, but equally, they haven't ruled it out. The involvement of the Major Crime Unit is a clear indicator that this avenue is being seriously investigated. Stranger abductions are statistically rare, but they are a terrifying reality. The fact that the children's boots and backpack were taken could be interpreted in multiple ways. Either the children put them on themselves, or someone else prepared them to leave. That silent sliding door also adds a layer of unease. It could have allowed the children to slip out unnoticed, or it could have provided a quiet entry or exit for someone else. If it were an abduction, so many questions pop up. Was it a crime of opportunity? Or was it targeted? If targeted, by whom and why? There have been no public reports of ransom demands, which often accompany certain types of abductions. The lack of any witnesses, even in a rural area, is also puzzling. Someone taking two children, even from a secluded property, risks being seen. The collection of video footage from Gairloch Road between April 28th and May 2nd was a crucial step in trying to identify any unusual vehicles or individuals in the area during that critical window. Police have used the term suspicious disappearance when they can't rule out criminality. And this case, with its utter lack of clues, certainly lends itself to that. Experts have pointed out that the absence of evidence is, in itself, a significant and troubling factor. It deviates sharply from cases where children are lost and eventually found, or even from many abduction scenarios where some form of evidence trail, however faint, eventually emerges. Police have interviewed numerous individuals, including family members, and have used tools like polygraph tests. This is standard investigative procedure, not necessarily due to suspicion, but to gather information and, where possible, eliminate individuals from lines of inquiry or, conversely, to focus attention where it might be warranted. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, has been public about his cooperation, including taking a polygraph. The focus of any investigation like this inevitably includes those closest to the missing individuals because they are the ones who can provide the most detailed information about the children's lives, routines, and any potential issues or conflicts that might be relevant. The emotional state of the parents, their reactions, and their statements are all things investigators would carefully consider, comparing them against known behavioral patterns in similar cases. This is a delicate and complex part of any such investigation, requiring both empathy and objective analysis. The timeline remains a critical piece of the puzzle. The children were last heard by their parents around 10 a.m. on May 2nd. The call to the RCMP was also made around this time. So, how quickly were they discovered missing after they were last heard? What was the exact sequence of events within the home that morning? These are details that would have been exhaustively reviewed with the parents. The fact that the children were seen in public with family on May 1st, the day before, is also a key point. Where were they? Who were they with? Did anything unusual happen during that outing? This sighting helps anchor their presence shortly before their disappearance, but doesn't shed light on the events of May 2nd itself. But perhaps the most baffling aspect of all is the complete lack of forensic evidence at the scene or in the extensively searched areas. No footprints definitively identified as theirs leading away, beyond that unconfirmed boot print on a pipeline trail, whose significance remains unclear. No dropped toy, no fibers, nothing to indicate their path or what might have happened to them. It's as if they were simply erased from the landscape. This quiet disappearance, as expert Michelle Genies termed it, leaves investigators grappling with a void. When there is evidence, even evidence of a crime, it provides a path, a direction for the investigation. When there is nothing, investigators must work outwards from the point of disappearance, meticulously examining every possibility, every person, every piece of data, hoping for that one tiny crack of light in the overwhelming darkness. The process is painstaking, often frustrating, and requires an extraordinary level of dedication and patience. The RCMP's comment that the investigation may take longer than we all hoped is a stark acknowledgement of the challenges they face. The public, too, grapples with the unknown. In this age of social media, cases like these often generate intense online discussion, with amateur sleuths proposing their own theories. While public engagement can sometimes yield valuable tips, it can also lead to misinformation and add to the suffering of the families involved. The RCMP have been careful about the details they release, balancing the need for public assistance with the need to protect the integrity of an active and sensitive investigation. The core unanswered questions remain stark and haunting. Where did Lilly and Jack go after leaving their home? Did they leave on their own, or were they taken? If they wandered off, how could they vanish so completely in an area so thoroughly searched? If they were taken, by whom? How? And why has there been no trace, no demand, no information? What does the silence of the woods truly signify? These questions echo in the minds of the investigators, the family, the community, and really, anyone who hears the story of the children who never returned. Each day that passes without an answer just deepens the mystery and compounds the anguish. Weeks have turned into months since Lilly and Jack Sullivan vanished from their Nova Scotia home. The vibrant colors of early May have long given way to the deeper greens of summer, yet the shadow of their absence only lengthens. For the family, each day is a continuation of a nightmare, a torment of unanswered questions and unfulfilled hopes. The silence in their home, once filled with the laughter and energy of young children, is now a constant, painful reminder of what has been lost. The emotional burden on parents in such situations is almost beyond comprehension, a unique and agonizing grief characterized by ambiguous loss, which offers no solace, no definitive end to the wondering and the waiting. The community of Lansdowne Station, and indeed much of Nova Scotia and beyond, remains captive to the story. Memorials might shrink or grow, public attention may ebb and flow with news updates, but for those who live there, for those who participated in the searches, for every parent who tucks their child into bed at night, the story of Lilly and Jack is a chilling reminder of life's fragility and the darkness that can inexplicably descend. Small towns often experience such tragedies with a particular intensity. The sense of interconnectedness means that everyone feels the loss. Everyone shares the fear and the desperate hope for a resolution. The RCMP investigation continues, a quiet, persistent hum beneath the surface of everyday life. While large-scale ground searches are no longer the primary focus unless new information identifies specific areas, the work of the Major Crime Unit and other specialized teams is ongoing. This involves meticulously re-examining existing information, following up on any new tips, analyzing data, and keeping lines of communication open with national and international agencies specializing in missing children. Cases like this are never truly cold, as long as there are avenues to explore, however faint. Investigators are driven by a commitment to find answers, not just for the sake of solving a puzzle, but for the sake of the children and their suffering family. As Corporal Sandy Matheru put it, "We recommitted to doing what is necessary to locate Lilly and Jack and advance the investigation." That says it all. The anomalous nature of the case continues to be a defining feature. It stands apart from so many other missing children cases due to the complete lack of physical clues in the face of such an extensive search. This forces investigators to keep an open mind to all possibilities, including those that might seem less probable at first glance. They must resist the urge to focus too narrowly on one theory and instead allow the evidence, or the lack thereof, to guide them. The investigation is described as taking longer than we all hoped, a candid admission of the immense challenge posed by a case with so few leads. The psychological impact extends beyond the immediate family. There's a collective trauma when children disappear from a community. It can erode the sense of safety and security, making parents more anxious and children more fearful. The woods, once a place for adventure and play, can become imbued with a sense of menace. The narrative of Lost Woods Mysteries becomes a chillingly accurate descriptor for the experience of an entire region haunted by the unknown fate of two of its youngest members. For the public, the case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and community support. The hundreds of tips received by the RCMP demonstrate a public eager to help, a collective desire to contribute to finding Lilly and Jack. Police continue to appeal for anyone with information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, to come forward. They specifically requested video footage from Gairloch Road around the time of the disappearance, hoping that a passing vehicle's dashcam or a home security system might have captured something vital that was missed or not initially recognized as important. That one frame, that fleeting image, could be the key to unlocking this agonizing mystery. It's a chilling echo of other cases, isn't it? Like Brenda Howell and Donald Baker, who vanished in California's San Gabriel Mountains way back in 1956, or Bruce Creeman, who disappeared from a summer camp in the same area in 1960. Extensive searches, and then just decades of questions. These historical cases, though decades old, highlight that the terror of a child vanishing into a vast wilderness, leaving no trace, is not a uniquely modern horror. They underscore the painful reality that sometimes, despite all human effort and technological advancement, the wild can keep its secrets. It even makes you think of fictional stories like Aidan Thomas's Lost in the Never Woods, where children vanish and the woods themselves seem to hold a supernatural power. Of course, real-life investigations must remain grounded in facts and evidence. But the emotional resonance of such stories touches upon the deep-seated anxieties that cases like the Sullivans evoke. The sense of encountering something beyond easy explanation, a place where the known rules don't seem to apply. As time goes on, the hope for a joyful reunion may dim for some, replaced by a more somber hope for answers, for closure of any kind. But for the family, and for the investigators dedicated to the case, that flame of hope, however small, must be kept alive. It is what fuels the continued effort, the relentless pursuit of truth. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan is a stark reminder that the world can be a perilous place, even in idyllic rural settings. It highlights the tireless work of law enforcement and search and rescue volunteers who step into the breach when the unthinkable happens. And it underscores the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss and uncertainty. The mystery of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, the children who walked out of their Nova Scotia home and into the heart of an enigma, remains painfully unsolved. The dense woods of Lansdowne Station continue to guard their secrets, offering no solace, no clues, only a vast, green silence that amplifies the unanswered questions. 6-year-old Lilly, with her pink boots and white backpack. 4-year-old Jack, with his short blondish hair and his blue dinosaur boots. They are not statistics. They are beloved children, their absence a gaping wound in the heart of their family and community. Authorities have explored every avenue, from the children wandering off to the possibility of something far more sinister. Extensive searches have yielded nothing. Hundreds of tips have been investigated. National agencies are involved. Yet, Lilly and Jack remain missing. The investigation is ongoing, a testament to the unwavering commitment to find them, to uncover the truth of what happened on that spring morning. The term Lost Woods Mysteries is more than just a title. It's a reflection of a painful reality for the Sullivan family and their community. The children who never returned are a stark reminder of the unknown, of the quiet terror that can unfold in the most ordinary of settings. Their story is a call for vigilance, for community, and for an enduring hope that one day, the silence will be broken and answers will be found. What are your thoughts on this deeply perplexing case? What theories do you think might explain the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan? Please share your perspectives respectfully in the comments below. Every share of this story helps keep their memory alive and reinforces the call for answers. If you believe you have any information, however insignificant it might seem, that could relate to the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, please contact the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit at 902-896-5060, or to remain anonymous, Call Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS 8477 or submit a secure web tip at www.crimestoppersns.ca. Thank you for joining us in this investigation. If you wish to support us in bringing attention to unsolved cases and exploring compelling mysteries, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future investigations. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep seeking the truth.